started weapons and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
Mahmoud Khalil, one of the ringleaders of anti-Israel protests at Columbia University last year, will remain in ICE custody for now, following a hearing in a Manhattan federal court Wednesday. District Judge Jesse Furman from the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York previously ordered that the 30-year-old not be deported, while the court considers the legal challenge brought by his lawyers. Yesterday in New York, angry protesters shouted at Border Czar Tom Homan, demanding Khalil's release from ICE custody. But Homan was unfazed.
You're not going to stop us. New York State, you got to change the sanctuary status. If you don't, get out of the way, because we're going to do our job. We'll double the man force there if we have to. Because rather than one officer arresting a bad guy in the jail, one officer arresting one bad guy, now I got to send the whole team, which means what? It means we send more officers to New York to get the job done.
As for Khalil, Fox News legal analyst Jonathan Turley says this isn't just about someone's right to protest.
The problem is not participating in protests supporting Palestine. You're allowed to do that.
Right.
The problem is conduct. This case involves conduct. He was a part of an effort that occupied buildings, committed property damage, and he's accused of basically furthering Hamas literature, etc. No.
Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin said Wednesday that the Trump administration will put an end to the Green New scam, adding that Democrats will no longer be able to waste billions in taxpayer dollars.
The death of the Green New scam is upon us. And there are people who are congressional Democrats who are not going to be happy with our actions. I am here to fight for, as part of that Trump mandate earned November 5th, the people across this country who have seen a Green New Deal that, if fully implemented, would cost tens of trillions of dollars, and people who cannot afford to be able to heat their home, to purchase a car, small businesses that are struggling to operate. People have been put out of work, and it's going to end.
An immigration enforcement organization says a self-deportation app launched by DHS is an important tool for illegal aliens who realize that it is time to go home.
Thousands of illegal aliens recently got a surprise when the apps issued to them by the Biden administration to facilitate their entry into the U.S. have been reprogrammed to help them self-deport. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the launch, saying, quote, "The CBP Home app gives aliens the option to leave now and self-deport, so they may still have the opportunity to return legally in the future and live the American dream. If they don't, we will find them, we will deport them, and they will never return." Ira Melman is media director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform.
If they come to realize that remaining in the United States illegally is not going to benefit them because we are enforcing laws against employers, we're cutting off non-emergency, non-essential benefits and services, and then at some point it becomes pointless for them to remain here in the United States, and many will decide over time that it is time to go back.
Melman says self-deportation is an important tool here.
People act rationally. They acted rationally when they came to the United States illegally because they believed, with good reason, that our laws were not going to be enforced. And if you change those expectations, if you make it clear to people that, yes, we do take our immigration laws seriously, then you will find many that also respond rationally and decide it's time to go home. Obviously, it's never going to be everybody. There is no law made by man or God that has 100% compliance, but the perfect doesn't need to be the enemy of the good.
I'm Chad Groening.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hey, we're announcing a weekend with AFA on Thursday, October the 2nd through Saturday, October the 4th. We'll have a weekend get-together with AFA leadership and supporters. It's a chance for all of us to get better acquainted.
It's a weekend with AFA, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th in Tupelo, Mississippi. Speakers will include Abraham Hamilton III, Jenna Ellis, Tim Barton, Tim Wildman, and more. Register at afa.net/weekend.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. So today is Thursday, March the 13th, 2025. Ed Battagliano is in studio with me. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson.
Hello there.
All right, so much to talk about, which is a good thing because this is a talk show.
Yes.
And if we didn't have issues and topics to discuss, where would we be, Ed?
Folks would get pretty bored pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, the magnetism of our personality would keep people listening for a while.
You got a point.
But not for an hour and a half.
But board games over radio just doesn't work. So, I mean.
Board games.
How
are you spelling that? B-O-R-E-D?
People play board games anymore? I thought that was left to my
son,
childhood.
They play Battleship every now and then.
Your kids do?
Yeah. Is that considered a board
Yeah,
game?
I would consider that.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's old school. That's 70s. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
That came out. Remember electric football, Ed?
Yes.
No, you've lost me.
Yeah, electric. Yeah.
Well, Ed, describe, if you would, for my son Wesley.
It was
electric football was all about.
It was like a sheet of tin that was painted like a football field.
Yes, it was.
And you'd line your teams up.
Uh-huh.
The thing was plugged in. You'd turn it on, and I guess it was tin. It would vibrate. I mean, you talk about a dumb idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sold a million.
It would vibrate. You'd put the little football in like the running back's hand.
Yeah.
And it would vibrate, and hopefully the player would go in the right direction down the field.
Right. You had no control.
You had absolutely no control, and we would play that a few minutes.
Right.
And then go outside and throw around a real football.
Right.
Because it
So it was a lot like PlayStation 5. No, probably not that.
No, look it up. Electric football.
I'm looking at it now.
That's probably came out in the early 70s.
I think it was the 60s, because my cousins, who are older than me, I remember going over to their house, and they had one of these games. And at first you think it's the coolest thing.
Sure.
And here's how dumb it was. If you wanted to throw a pass in this game, you'd put the football into the arm of the quarterback. You'd pull the arm back and let it go, and hopefully it would hit the receiver. I mean, it was pretty bad.
You want to know how funny all this is? So I looked up it, and every meaning the 3 videos I looked for, at the moment that they show you the box, everything. At the moment it gets to show you how it plays out and what it looks like in real, like, it stops.
It stops.
It's not
Absolutely.
because there's a reason they're not. Because if they showed me what you just described, nobody's going to buy them.
No one's going to buy it.
I'll tell you what. Boys my age also remember.
Yeah.
More primitive than electric football, which was, a whole new world, was the triangle paper football.
Oh, yeah. Now, I played that into college.
Is that still a thing?
I don't know.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Triangle. If you had a boring class, triangle football could carry you through.
That's
now,
right.
Fred's just looking.
Fred, do you remember? Did you have triangle paper hockey?
No.
No. Okay.
Hockey's much more
You'd
sophisticated.
fold a piece of paper into a triangle, and you'd tuck things in.
Right.
And then you would slap it from one side to try to get
like you slap tariffs.
So it would lean over the other side of the table, and that was a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then you'd kick the extra point through the. Oh my goodness!
We had it good back then, Fred.
Get 4 tries
in Bible college.
Turn over on down.
This shows you how bored we got sometimes. In Bible college, we had a league.
Not during class, did you?
Not during class.
Okay.
No.
This is when you were studying Leviticus, right?
Leviticus, hey, pull out the football.
All right.
Board games. I'm sorry. This is on me. Usually it's on you or
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'll take this one.
I think you took advantage of the fact that Ed's so easily distracted.
Yes.
Did.
Squirrel.
I'm the one that has to keep this show focused.
Yeah, you do.
Hands up,
great
blame
job.
me. Hands up, blame me.
All right. So we got so much to talk about. Sandy Rios will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Before we jump into national news, Fred, and international news even, we have a situation where we live here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and Lee County, which is the county that Tupelo is in, that is rocking our world, isn't it? What happened yesterday?
It sure is. We are served by the natural gas company Atmos here in this area. And yesterday, some workers with Atmos were working on a gas leak, working on a pipeline gas leak about 10, 15 miles south of the city of Tupelo. And there was an explosion. And this is what, local media is talking about. There was an explosion. Two employees were seriously injured. Don't know their exact condition this morning. So be praying for those two workers. But the result is the gas service in this area has completely been shut down while they work on the repairs.
For the whole county.
Yes. So we're talking 20,000 customers, restaurants, obviously people's houses, et cetera, et cetera. And what is happening today, crews with Atmos are having to go around and turn off the spigot, as it were, on each house and each business, et cetera, et cetera.
20,000 houses and businesses.
Yes. They're bringing in crews from other states because this is a big job.
Yeah.
So they're shutting down the meters while the repairs are going on. And then when the repairs have been completed, and they're not giving a time range on this, but I think it's, as some are saying, days. This is going to be days. When they do that, then they have to come back to all of these individual businesses and houses and turn the gas back on, but also they're going to inspect where the gas comes into your hot water heater, your furnace.
Oh, my.
They have to inspect all of those to make sure the connections are all up to grade, because I assume there's going to be this kind of burst of natural gas pressure when they turn this thing back on, and they want to make sure the pipes and the equipment can handle that. So this is going to be very labor intensive. Atmos has a kind of a step-by-step of what they're planning to do. And somebody has to be home. Somebody 18 years of age has to be home when they start coming around. And
they're coming around now. Because
right now they're just shutting off the meters.
Shutting off. You're talking weeks of businesses being closed, especially restaurants. Probably 90% of the restaurants in our area are affected. Now, Tupelo and Lee County, you're talking 40,000 people live in the city and maybe 80,000 live in the county. For Mississippi, that's big.
Yeah.
For other states, that's small, but for our state, that's a big area. A lot of people impacted. But I'm just talking about you just never know what tomorrow holds.
Right.
For any of us. I mean, that sounds cliche and trite, I guess, but I was thinking to myself, how many of these businesses have business interruption insurance?
Yeah.
For example, can a mom and pop restaurant afford to stay closed for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Their margins are already so thin. Profit margins.
Unless you have that kind of insurance, and some business we do here at AFA, that we're not affected by this in terms of our daily operations, because we're not cooking anything and we're not, a
taking
hotel,
showers
or anything like that. But I'm just saying, I was thinking about, what about the suppliers of, let's say, beverages? Let's say the Coke company or the Pepsi company. Well, they're delivering to restaurants all day, every day. Well, if the restaurants don't have customers, nobody buys the soft drinks. Somebody buys the soft drinks. The trucks don't run. Somebody's out of work. You see how this works?
Yeah. There's follow-on effects for all this. And the fact is, this is not like checking for water leaks. With gas, you're talking about the potential of homes exploding with people in it.
Yes.
So that's why they're probably going inside to make sure the fittings.
I'm assuming it's clearly an accident, but somebody has to take the blame, or vice versa, or maybe it was. I mean, or somebody.
We don't know what happened exactly.
That's
What the reason for the explosion?
Yeah, and then once you find that, is somebody financially held accountable, or does it just go under a miss? I mean, ultimately,
I'm sure the companies like Atmos, they have insurance for. For accidents, for things that happen. But
well, on a more serious note, is Chick-fil-A going to be open today?
I have no idea.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, there aren't people laughing right now. A lot of people are out of work right now. But Chick-fil-A, if you don't have to use gas to light your your cookers, your stoves.
Yeah, your electric.
Well, for someone like me, this is a new story, and I am getting caught up to it because we don't go out to eat much, and we don't have gas at home. So while I was getting information about this last night, I was having a hard time understanding the bigger impact of what this is, because right now it hasn't affected us.
Yeah.
But to your point,
there are a lot of people
and businesses.
Yeah, 20,000 homes and businesses impacted. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. They were just telling folks what's happening with us around here. What's next, Fred?
Well, there's breaking news out of Washington at this hour. The White House has withdrawn the nomination of Dr. David Weldon. He's a former Florida congressman who President Trump had nominated to lead the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This is a bit of a shock. You know, we've had some controversial nominees like RFK Jr. and some, Kash Patel and others. So it was kind of a shock just about in the last hour or so when we read this. The Associated Press is reporting, and a few other news agencies, that the White House deemed that there was not enough support for Dr. Weldon to make it through the Senate. So that tells me they heard from a number of Republicans who said they were going to vote against. So not enough support. Dr. Weldon, this is again according to the Associated Press and a few other news agencies, has been an outspoken critic of vaccines. Was that the reason? Well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an outspoken opponent of a lot of vaccines, not all. So is that the reason why? We're not sure. But anyway, the big news, and perhaps we'll talk to Sandy about this a little bit later, is that Dr. David Weldon, the White House has withdrawn his name to head the CDC. CDC, pretty important agency.
Yeah, and this is, I'm going to be honest, I was actually surprised that RFK Jr. got confirmed simply because there's a lot of controversy over vaccines. Dr. Weldon was someone who believed there was an established link between childhood vaccination, especially the number of vaccines that kids get nowadays, and autism. I think that RFK Jr. might have gotten through because he basically said, his kids were all vaccinated. He just wanted there to be further research on it. And so maybe that's the reason. We'll have to find out. None of us right now, since this is breaking news, know what the reasons are, other than the votes just weren't there even from Republicans to get Weldon through.
Yeah.
Y'all been reading about the measles spreading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I mean, that hadn't been a thing for a long time.
There have been measles outbreaks, haven't there?
Yeah, there's one particularly major outbreak in a community in Texas.
Yeah.
That's been getting a lot of attention. And the mainstream media has been dealing with this because it is a group of people that don't believe in vaccines.
Okay.
And
at all?
I'm not sure at all, but that has been said about this particular community, and there's been a very high incidence there. But we're starting to see reports from Florida, from other states, California. I think there was a case this week of measles. Some people say, because of all the people traveling,
and I've heard illegal immigration.
Yes.
That may be because these people were not vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor, but I do know there are some people saying that some of these outbreaks and these pop-up diseases of this and that are because of the millions that came into this country from outside the U.S.
Not having any kind of vaccine.
Right.
Yes. So the answer to your question, Tim, is that we're not sure.
Okay. And the reason I said it was just I probably gave a funny look when you asked. I had the measles when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Everybody I knew had the measles. Didn't you guys?
Yes.
Older guys? Everyone seemed to get the measles. Now, maybe the kind that we got vaccinated for was a more virulent strain. But this is kind of like, for me, this discussion about vaccines is kind of like when people start talking about deep economic topics. I kind of go, Yeah, well, like you do, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
kinda
can
go,
go deep on the economic issues.
I just go, I don't know.
Sounds like me and geopolitics.
We all have our
He just-
strengths, don't we?
He just wanted you to use the word geopolitics.
That's it.
Well, he
Sounds
did it.
smart.
Away.
He did it.
Thank you.
Put it in the right place.
I got it done before Friday.
So vaccines aren't your. That's not the first thing you want to talk to somebody about when you meet.
Yeah,
a new
all these
person.
people saying, it leads to autism, and I'm to go, maybe it does.
How do
I
you
don't
know?
know.
Right.
I just have to rely on somebody with more smarts than I have.
Right.
Yep.
Anyway, the
figure
big
this
news
out.
is that this gentleman, what's his name?
David Weldon, Dr. David Weldon,
His nomination was pulled
sworn.
almost before a hearing.
Yep.
And the thinking is he didn't have the support in the Senate to be passed, right?
That is what the
And he was going to be in
Associated
charge of the CDC.
Press- That is correct.
In fact, he didn't find out until he showed up
That's right.
today.
It was very abrupt.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Next story.
All right. We've talked a lot about in recent weeks about President Donald Trump's targeting DEI within the federal government. Tim, you sent out a story last night from the Daily Mail, and they were able to get their hands on what they described as a top DEI activist. Now, we want to qualify this.
Get their hands on a recording.
Yes.
They didn't get their hands on him.
No.
Okay.
A recording from
Yes.
this DEI activist.
And for DEI, for those who don't know, is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That is correct.
And it's basically just, I know most people who are people hear that and they may say, what is that exactly? This is the idea that you promote people and hire people based on race, ethnicity, gender, transgender. In other words, those things go before qualification
Or merit.
or merit.
Another way of saying merit.
In the name of pushing
And
diversity.
And just a quick example.
Yeah.
So if you're black, you get points, but if you're black and gay, you get more points, and you move up.
Yeah. I
mean, they're
that's they want to promote. They say diversity, inclusion, and I don't know who's against that.
well, but they
want to promote
they
it.
exclude white people.
Yeah, they would exclude people
Because of white people in the majority.
who might even be more qualified than a DEI
Right.
candidate
So-
in the name of repairing past wrongs.
Right.
So
It's social justice.
More politically correct way of what I
Yes.
just said, but okay.
So that's what we're talking about. With
Thanks for saving me.
Yes.
So this DEI, this story. Go ahead with this story.
All right. And again, I want to make sure this video comes from 2014.
but it's just now surfacing.
Now surfacing. DEI became a priority for President Barack Obama. All right. The story focuses on a gentleman by the name of Sheldon Snow, who is described as a powerful figure in the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees. Now, what you're going to hear is him talking to apparently some candidates under the DEI program. And what he is telling them is that he has taken some screenshots of some testing, and he's going to pass that along to them before they take the test. All right? So have a listen for yourself. Cut number 11.
Allow me to go to work and come home, provide you with an email that will be extremely crucial in the opening stages of this hiring process. There are some valuable pieces of information that I have taken a screenshot of, and I'm going to send that to you via email. Keep in mind, we are trying to maximize your opportunities. And as you progress through the stages, refer to those images so that you will know which icons you should select. I'm about 99.99% sure that it's exactly how you need to answer each question in order to get through the first phase.
All right. So he works for the DEI segment of the FAA, or did back in 2014. And what this story is alleging is that he was helping certain candidates pass a test.
By giving them the answers.
By giving them the answers.
Yes. And so,
in advance.
Yes, in advance. So the way most people think about testing is that you've got to know the material, you take the test, and if you pass, you advance in the hiring process. What he's doing is circumventing the process so that even if you don't know the answers yourself, you can test well and advance.
Yes.
So the question obviously becomes, does that lead to getting less qualified people? And I'm assuming we're talking about people who might even be in terms of air traffic control.
There is a former member of this National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees, the NBCFAE, who is quoted in this Daily Mail story. His name is Matthew Douglas, and he gave this quote: "I know several people who cheated, and I know several people who are controlling planes as we speak." In other words, they're air traffic controllers.
Now, in that same story, what's the quote where it says we're doing this to I'm paraphrasing here, to keep others from being able to be hired? A certain group of people. There's a quote in there about that. Do you see what I'm asking?
Yes.
What's the quote there?
It's a fairly long story. I'd have to find that quote.
Okay, I'll try to find it.
Okay, good.
All right. Anyway, DEI is anti-American. Now, that is not to say that people, that minorities in this country have not experienced discrimination historically just because of their skin color. That is absolutely true.
Right.
Or other reasons, ethnicity, perhaps. But that day is long past in America. We're now 10 years removed from a 2-term African American president, so voted by the general public. So
and a vice presidential candidate in 2020, who, depending on your views of the 2020 election, was elected along with Joe Biden.
Yeah, but she was a DEI hire.
Well, it's true, but I'm saying people voted for her.
Oh yeah,
even though she was black.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that's not a consideration with Americans anymore. Broadly and generally speaking, we want people to lead. We want people to host TV shows that we're going to watch. Oprah Winfrey. We want to see athletes that are going to perform. And many of them are African American. We want to see business leaders, whether they black, white, green, yellow, who succeed.
Yeah.
Americans don't care about color anymore. Again, broadly and generally. Go ahead.
Okay, this is from the email that we were talking about with Snow. It says this: "We are only concerned about African American and women of every ethnic background and other minorities. Please ensure that you share this information with no one that identifies outside of that. This information is reserved for those class of people that we represent. This is to minimize competition."
That was from the actual email from Sheldon. Good old Shelley.
Yeah.
Shelley Snow.
That fellow you're talking about, that you're quoting right there, was from 2014. He was an Obama.
Yes, DEI section of the FAA.
And what he was doing was he was telling people how to cheat on their test.
To minimize competition.
He was giving them answers so that they didn't have to compete with others who were not in their category, right?
Right.
We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Words of Jesus from the 18th chapter of Matthew. Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. I want to share a story with you that happened to me many, many years ago. The children were young then. The day had been one of those rough ones. You know what I mean, for all of us have them. It seems like everything had gone wrong from the moment that I'd gotten up. I'd been on edge most of the day and had been in a mood that even I didn't like myself in. Then, to add to the woes of the day, it seemed like my son had purposely been doing everything he shouldn't have been doing. I had been real grouchy with him, had taken very little time to understand him or help him. It just seemed like he was constantly in the way all that day. Why is it we all have days like that? I'm not completely certain as to the why, but I have some ideas. One is that we get in too big a hurry. Perhaps this is the biggest fault of our jet-set day. We live in too big a rush. Sometimes we meet ourselves coming back. We think that our much doing and fast pace means good living. And I think we're wrong about that. Often we need to be still and know. And then another reason why we have days when everything goes wrong is because we don't take one thing at a time. We get a half dozen things going, projects, any one of which we should be doing by itself. And then they all come at us at one time, and the result is tension. Still another reason for days when everything seems to go wrong is that we forget the eternal presence of the gentle Galilean carpenter. We try to tackle all our problems, face all our situations, do all our duties alone. And life just wasn't designed to be run that way. We're partners, not proprietors, and we need to remember that we're working with Him. How often we need to talk things over with our silent partner. Well, the day came to a close, as they all do, and after the children had their baths, it was time for our family prayers. I must admit I wasn't in the mood to say my prayers, and had it not been from sheer habit and concern for the children, I would not have knelt down beside the bed that night. But for some reason I can't recall now, the girls in the family didn't say their prayers with us that night. It was just the two of us. So I let my son say his prayer first, and then I intended to say a quick one and call it quits. Get it over. Well, he began in the usual manner, thanking God for several things. And then it happened, his tone of voice changed, and in his final petition, with a voice so sincere I thought he was going to cry, he said, "And, dear God, make me a better little boy. Amen." Well, I was stunned and shocked and humbled and ashamed. And I had only one petition, and it came from the heart. Dear God, make me a better father. Amen. The carpenter once said those who enter his kingdom would have to come as a small child. I understand a little better now what he meant by that.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God in an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 1.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim with Ed, Wesley, and Fred. So there are four of us. So you got 25% from each of us contribution. You got 100% of a brain right there.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's why we do this. Hey, you were reading a story about the weather about to impact the majority, a big part of the country coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, I was looking when we were talking about the Daily Mail story about the DEI.
The weather's going to be DEI impacted?
Well, I saw this story, the lead story on the Daily Mail. The headline says, "Mega storm heading for U.S. states tomorrow will unleash life-threatening flash floods and tornadoes," as you mentioned during the break. This is for some of them. Some states. It's going to be Saturday, even through Sunday. More than 100 million people, I'm quoting now, are in the path of a gigantic and dangerous storm system set to barrel through the U.S. this weekend. Meteorologists warn that this mega storm will likely bring tornadoes, flash floods, blizzards, and even fires starting on Friday. The storms are expected to stretch as far south as Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, and as far west as Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma before driving through the center of the country towards Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota,
we got it.
Wisconsin.
We got it.
Well,
you just act like you were enjoying that too much.
Listen, it sounds like the movie of the week.
It's Twister.
Sharknado. Okay, this is
Twister 3.
Yeah, Twister 3.
Did
So
it-
anyway, this is that time of the year.
Go ahead.
Did it mention Louisiana and Alabama?
Yes, it did.
Did it mention Mississippi?
No,
It did
it's going to
not.
pass right
Okay.
over us.
I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed at weather forecasts.
No, it's going to go from Louisiana up through Arkansas, sweep around to Kentucky, and then back down to Alabama.
Well,
because God is protecting us.
Stinks to be Alabama, Louisiana, and Tennessee.
No, we're laughing here, but this is going to be it's batting down the hatches for the heartland and
Yes.
for the Midwest and for the Deep South.
My weather app this morning when I looked, I'm an old man, so now I always look at the weather. They're talking about maybe as many as 3 inches of rain on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And we do laugh about it a little bit because this is the time of the year where if you live in this part of the country, you get whacked.
Tornado season.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but for farmers, they're probably getting their crops in this week because that's a lot of rain. 3 inches.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah. It is a
optimistic. That's optimistic, Wesley.
Well,
yeah, it is that time of year though for severe weather on a regular basis.
And I complain no matter what the weather is. It's too cold in the winter.
Right.
I can't wait for the warm weather to get here.
The
And
warm
then
weather is here for most of the country, and we're thankful.
The warm weather gets here, and it brings thunderstorms and
you know the best part
tornadoes.
about that? You're consistent, Ed.
I am.
He's a consistent whiner.
Listen, Italians will rival Jews in terms of complaining.
Was that anti-Semitic? What do you?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, my uncle. My
Yeah,
uncle was
Jews
Jewish.
can complain. I've been in the airport in New York
Russians
many times.
Russians are big complainers.
Huh?
There's certain groups that are whiners.
More than others.
More
We all
than
whine,
others.
but
They have their good parts too.
Absolutely.
They have their good parts, but yeah.
But Canadians don't.
You don't? No.
We're the most
No, not unless Trump slaps them with a tariff. And then they can complain loud.
That's right. That's right.
What was the fellow's name the other day? The
Ford?
Well, Ford. What
Yes.
was it? What's his
Premier,
title?
He's the Premier of Ontario.
Premier of Ontario. He said he was going to cut off electricity to 4 American states, and he was going to do it with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
He got talked out of it.
I thought that was unnecessary.
More reasonable minds prevailed.
Disappointing. He was going to cut off electricity to New York and Minnesota and
Michigan.
and do it with a smile on there. In Michigan too.
Yep.
He didn't do it though, did he?
No, he did not.
He backed off of that.
Yep.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Fred, you want to introduce our guest?
Our guest, who doesn't know Sandy Rios?
Right. For
Host
someone
of
who
Sandy Rios 24/7.
For someone who doesn't need an introduction, so she won't get one. No, just kidding. Sandy Rios. Sandy, good morning to you.
You guys are so funny. Hey,
Well-
can I tell you a funny story before you ask me something substantive?
Yes, please.
You mentioned the London Daily Mail, or they call it the Daily Mail. And I don't know about you guys, but I find it to be a great resource for facts. They're very far on the left, but they
Are they
really
really?
dig. Yes.
Yeah, they're lefties.
I read them all the time. I mean, that's my
Yeah.
They do pretty
Well-
good journalism.
yeah.
They do good reporting, unlike our reporters. So when I was at CPAC, I shared space with them. I mean, they were right next to me, and our tables, just people could walk between the tables. But so I was very fortunate to have some great guests. And they're watching. Every time I have a guest, they're looking and looking. And then here comes a former Prime Minister of Great Britain in their British paper, and she comes to interview with me, and one of the girls turns to Bruce and says, "Your wife must be famous." She did. And so when I finished, they asked if they could interview me when I finished with all of my
Well, you are famous.
I know.
You're well known. You've been in the pro-family movement for several years.
I'm well known to some people, but it just not famous. I don't think I'm famous.
That's
it just
funny.
made me laugh, but I really had a great interaction with him. I had a chance to kind of share, faith, and it was wonderful. So that's my story.
I read the Daily Mail almost every day.
Daily?
Yes, Daily Mail. Because to prepare for this show in the evenings, I often read the news. And it's
and you bombard us with
Well,
all
it never
the
struck
articles.
me as liberal. As maybe I've lost my discernment.
Well, to Sandy's point, they do excellent journalism, and sometimes that means you don't know what their leanings are because they're reporting facts.
And they are somewhat tabloidish, so I don't. You know, you're going to get your daily Taylor Swift update too. You know, with the news, it's not just straight up news. You know, hard news from the political or government scene.
Well, they'll drop in things like the disproven theory of COVID. You know, the vaccine's doing harm.
Right.
They'll say phrases like that. But really, they if you're discerning, it's straight up reporting, and they tell you stuff that's going on that nobody else talks about.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. So, Fred, what is your first question for Sandy?
Well, Sandy, there have been a lot of candidates that President Trump has selected. You know, I'm thinking Kash Patel, RFK Jr., and a lot of people said they'll never get through, but they did get through the Senate confirmation. But this morning, there was a very abrupt announcement from the Trump White House. They were about to hold a hearing for Trump's nomination to head the CDC, Dr. David Weldon of Florida, former congressman. And we got this word just about an hour and a half ago that President Trump had withdrawn that nomination. And what the Associated Press and Fox News is reporting is that the Trump administration believed that Dr. Weldon was not going to get the numbers needed to pass. In other words, there are apparently enough Republicans opposed to him that they thought it was useless to go through the confirmation hearing. And what we know is what's being reported, that Dr. Weldon had lots of questions about vaccines, connecting vaccines to autism, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering if you've heard anything about this, number one. But number two, it's strange that RFK Jr. makes it through, despite some of the controversial comments that he has made about vaccines. But apparently Dr. Weldon was not going to make it, according to Trump.
Well, I'm reading some things from other people this morning.
Okay.
And what I can say right now, it looks as though this is a total Chuck Schumer thing, that he interceded and used whatever leverage he has to stop this. But I can't tell you why in the world the Republicans folded or if someone opposed him. I can tell you that some things about Dave Weldon that people might not know. Tim, when your dad and I were working together in D.C., cloning and bioethics, along with Chuck Colson, were huge. I was real involved in that. And Dave Weldon, Dr. Dave Weldon, Congressman Dave Weldon from Florida, was a champion on that issue. And then later he sponsored the Weldon Amendment, which prevented organizations that were medical, if they received federal dollars, they could not require abortion be available. So he did that.
So he's one of us.
He's one of us. He started criticizing vaccines way back, saying he thought that they were causing autism. Not generally every vaccine, but I'm not being careful with my words. There was more laser focus than I'm giving it. But he really opposed the vaccines. He's a doctor with a conscience. He's just like RFK. But the other part that I'm reading here, and I'm just telling you what some people close to the issue are saying, is that the pharmaceutical companies have really, they've just really doubled down, and they let RFK Jr. pass, but they're like damned if they're going to let someone like him get in here and work with him. So that's all I know right now. That's all I know.
The Centers for Disease Control, I mean, they took a big hit in terms of their credibility during COVID. We all know that. What was that lady's name that was on TV all the time?
Oh, Birx.
No, not Deborah Birx. She's a scarf lady.
Yes, I know who you mean. I just can't think of her name.
Talking about the Indian lady. She was Indian, wasn't she, ethnicity-wise? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do.
Anyway,
I do. And I think
anyway,
you're right.
she was basically with Dr. Fauci. They teamed up to give America the guidance on how to deal with COVID. And they took a big hit because she would say one thing 1 week, and then 2 weeks later she would say something contradictory on COVID. I remember that.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people would consider contradictory advice. So what I'm saying is the CDC still maintains although they lost a lot of credibility with the American public, they still do maintain a very prestigious place in American medicine.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say. And so whoever heads up the Center for Disease Control, why do I always want to say in Atlanta when I say that?
That's because that's the way they work.
That's where they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
well,
where they are.
Okay.
And CDC director was Rochelle Walensky, Tim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she was Polish. All right.
Polish Indian.
Yeah, Polish Indian. What's the difference?
She was a Polish
She's Indian like Elizabeth Warren.
No, he's talking dot, not feather.
Yeah.
No. Oh boy.
Yeah. I don't know why everyone gets upset when I say that.
I know.
It doesn't bother me.
Well,
Yeah.
You're welcome. Doesn't bother.
I want to go back to a minute. Something you said, Sandy, a few moments ago, that you read somewhere where this was a bow the knee to Schumer. And
this is insider information from people who were right there.
Okay, I am wondering. Chuck Schumer publicly is saying that he's calling on all Democrats to vote against this budget.
He did say that?
Continuing resolution. However, The Hill is reporting this morning that Schumer has told Democrats, if you really feel like Senator Fetterman, who says he's going to vote with the Republicans on this budget, if you feel you can't, that you'll be blamed for a government shutdown, go ahead and vote with the Republicans. So I'm just wondering if there's been some conversation late last night or early this morning between Schumer and Senator Thune that, hey, we'll withdraw Weldon if you guys agree to vote for this continuing resolution.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Fred. I haven't seen that, but dollars to donuts, that's exactly right. But I think it went above Thune, actually.
Okay.
So,
well, somebody needs to explain what's going on here because Congressman Weldon deserves a hearing. He withdrew, right?
Right.
No.
He was on his way to the Capitol.
He didn't know. He
it.
deserves more respect than that and answer to what's going on here. And hopefully we'll get that today, even if it comes from the White. Probably the question number one at the White House press briefing. If maybe that's even going on right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I wish they would.
Let me ask you this:
let's vote on the spending bill and then renominate Dave Weldon. That's what I'm in favor of. Yeah.
All right, you're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred and Sandy Rios from Sandy Rios 24/7, which is a much listened to podcast released 3 times a week here at our. You can get it many places, but our own AFR.net has Sandy's. You can sign up to get Sandy's podcast 3 times a week, and again, it's Sandy Rios, RIOS 24/7. People love Sandy's podcast, and we encourage you to sign up for it. I'm going to ask you, Sandy, Bruce, your husband, you have him on a lot to talk about as it relates to police work and the FBI and so forth and so on. The FBI director now is Kash Patel. He was confirmed. And what do you think? I had not known too much about him prior to President Trump nominating him. I had heard his name and maybe seen an interview here or there over the years, but what does Bruce think of Kash Patel? What do you think of Kash Patel? What do you think? What will be his focus at the FBI now?
Well, Tim, he's actually a real bulldog. You remember when Devin Nunes revealed the very first inklings of a collusion about Russia? He didn't really spell it out. He had been called to view some documents. I don't know how that happened, but he had just seen all of these documents that implicated at the time Obama. He didn't say this. I'm telling you, now I know this. Now we know this. That it implicated Obama and Susan Rice and all of them, that they set President Trump up. And he had read that, came out and talked about it. Well, his lead investigator was Kash Patel. And Kash then was all over the fraud there. And he wrote a book about it. I can't think of the name of the book right now, but he really is an expert on that. So I think, Bruce feels good about him. And I do too. I have one caveat because I'm talking to my friends in the Christian world. Cash is not a believer in our God. He's Hindu. And I think that's perhaps at this multicultural state in our history, we can't say that shouldn't work, but I think it's at some point there's going to be a collision on the deeply different views of life and what's right and wrong. And so that's just a caution. But it's possible, we'll see how these things work, that if he, sticks to law and order and the FBI, the stuff at hand. But I just think inevitably, in a lot of these nominations, there's going to be some problems in the future because of that. We are, our laws and our everything is based on the Judeo-Christian ethic, and there's going to be kind of a problem, I think, in the future. But you know what? I'm not criticizing him. I'm hanging on by my fingernails. I know we all are, and we want him to do well. We want him to do well.
So far, I like everything I've heard from him, talking about Kash Patel. Of course, he hadn't been on the job long, but he is like old school FBI, and he's gonna first thing he wanted to do was like purge the
DEI hires.
Yeah,
yep.
Purge that from the all the woke policies
Woke,
from the.
That's the word.
He wanted to make it a woke museum or something like that. Talking about the FBI.
Oh yeah, he said some crazy things. That's why they hated him.
Yeah,
I mean, and I think he really means it. And they have purged a lot. I don't exactly know. I haven't heard much news, except I did just two days of podcasts with Steve Friend, who's one of the FBI whistleblowers.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of great inside information on what's going on there. So I commend that to people. So
the books that I looked up that Kash Patel has written is The Plot Against the King, and then Government Gangsters. The Deep State, The Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy.
So we got a guy heading the FBI up there who wrote a book called Government Gangsters.
Yes.
That's why the world has changed.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that's really good, Tim, that I should point out, I guess because it's deeply baked in the cake at our house, Bruce would tell you that the mission of the FBI was changed right after 9/11, and Bob Mueller led the charge on that. And it became pretty much terrorism, where, if people don't remember, way back before that, before 2001, the FBI was law and order. They were bank robberies, kidnapping, gangs, international cross-border things. They were not into, tracking down sheikhs in the Middle East or terrorists, but they had to turn on a dime. And so Kash has said he wants to send them back to their original mission, which is crime here at home. And I did ask him the question, Steve, can you quantify how much crime has taken place this last 4 years, since 9/11, that hasn't even been addressed, that hasn't been prosecuted, because the FBI has been doing this other stuff and coming after, now turning on so-called domestic terrorists like J6ers and former military who carry guns and those kind of, and pro-lifers. Pro-lifers, yeah. And I'll let him tell you the answer if you listen. He said, he used to do child pornography. That was a big thing for the FBI too. They took all those guys off of that and put them on prosecuting J6ers.
And a lot of that comes from, yes or no, you would know, but that turn on the dime came because of the Patriot Act, wasn't it? Where the government
was... After 9/11, you mean?
After 9/11, where the government was empowered to root out terrorist threats by also looking at Americans. And
a lot of conservatives were worried about that.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes. It was wartime, and that they did get that ability. And that is, but then we had all these bad actors who turned that power on American citizens.
Right.
Now,
all right.
So
all right, Sandy, go ahead and tell our listeners how they can, what's your next podcast topic going to be, and how they can join you.
Well, I spent this week, did 2 podcasts, for instance, with a Romanian. He calls himself H.D. Hartman, but I learned now he has a Romanian name that I can't pronounce. But he is a Jewish political pundit. He actually is connected in the Elon Musk world And a friend of mine a friend of mine connected me with HD. We had an incredible discussion about what's going on in Romania. Romania is the country that J.D. Vance mentioned in his speech to the Munich Security Conference, that the EU, actually, they had a man who won the election, and the EU, with cooperation of people in the country and the Supreme Court there, removed him. And now they arrested him, and now they won't let him run again. So it's a crisis, and the Romanians are in crisis. And that was, so that's what's going to, he calls himself again H.D. Hartman. Can I tell you, do I have a minute to tell you a story quickly? This is really interesting, and this is for our audience, our AFR listeners. When I was interviewing him, of course, he's not a believer in Christ, but he is a moral, serious Jewish man who believes in the scriptures and all of that. So we didn't talk about that. We talked about what's going on in Romania. But when we signed off, he had heard a podcast I did on Romania earlier, and he asked to be on through this mutual friend. So when we finished, he was so engaging. I loved it. And I know that they're in terrible trouble over there. And I just asked, I said, HD, I know you're a Jew and I'm a Christian, but can I please pray for you? This is off the air. And he said, yes. So I prayed for him, and then I prayed in Jesus' name. And would you believe, I did not know, the next morning he had to have serious surgery. He's very sick. And he actually communicated with our mutual friend and asked me to pray for him. Oh, wow. So it's just one of those things that you don't.
Amen. It's a divine moment.
It's a divine moment. He's on my heart very much, and I would invite people to pray for him in every way. H.D. Hartman.
So we're gonna hear him on your next podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
The first part went up yesterday, and the second part goes up. It's actually already up. I wanted to get it up because Romania's in crisis now. So
Wesley, tell folks how they can download Sandy's podcast.
Go to afr.net. That's afr.net, and then you go to podcasts. There's the podcast tab, and there you'll find
Sandy Rios banner.
Sandy Rios 24/7 banner. You can't miss it. And I'm sure she's going to be on other places like Apple and others, but we encourage you to go to afr.net.
Yeah. So now for podcast.
Thank you, Wesley.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
For podcasting, you can also have it automatically delivered to your.
I do.
How do you do that?
Mine's on Apple.
I mean, I could tell people, but I think it'd be better coming from you.
On Apple, I go to notifications, and when Sandy's podcast goes up, it notifies me. Or any other podcast I'm subscribed to. Hey, what was the gentleman's name we need to pray for, Sandy?
His name is his fake name is H.D. Hartman, and he does go by that. People, if you Google it, you'll see it.
I did Google it. He pops up.
Hartman.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great day.
My pleasure, you guys. Great to talk to you.
See you.
Tell
Love
Bruce
you guys.
hello for us.
I will. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Sandy Rios. Sandy Rios has a very popular podcast that we offer here at American Family Radio. And she does it 3 times a week, and Sandy brings the information and interviews and analysis that you want to hear on the news of the day. So check that out. Sandy Rios 24/7. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
How do you choose to stay informed? Sure, you can find all kinds of sources for information and commentary, but when you want them from a Christian perspective, turn to The Stand. Whether you choose to read the online blog or get the print version delivered to your mailbox, you can rest assured you'll receive factual news and biblically sound commentary. Find out more today at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty P. Time is running out to fund the federal government. Republicans are pushing forward with their spending bill, but Democrats refusing to get on board with President Trump's agenda could lead to a partial government shutdown by tomorrow. Chad Pergram has more from Capitol Hill.
Republicans plan to pin any shutdown on the Democrats, specifically Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. They argue that Schumer failed to bring any spending bills to the floor last year. Schumer now wants a 30-day Band-Aid bill. Schumer says Republicans lacked the votes to break a filibuster on their interim bill. But when Schumer spoke on the floor this morning, he did not directly reference a possible shutdown that could signal a change. Schumer spoke about government cuts via DOGE. Democrats fear a shutdown could empower Musk to make more cuts. That said, liberal Democrats are willing to fight. They believe they've reached an inflection point.
Members of the Senate Health Committee gather and vote in favor of President Trump's picks to lead the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institutes of Health. Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley criticizes FDA nominee Dr. Marty McCary's support for a Biden administration lawyer.
This same attorney whom he had chosen to be the head of, again, the FDA's chief counsel, had also repeatedly argued for President Biden's vaccine mandates and had argued that there was no imposition on religious liberty in the vaccine mandates, that there should be no exceptions.
President Trump meeting with Republican senators about his tax cuts today. Edward Lawrence reports from the White House.
President Trump wants his meeting to make sure there's a plan to move this forward with Republicans. In that bill is also going to be no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Now, the meeting today with the president about getting on the same page to make all those tax cuts permanent. Now, for Democrats, it's about pushing back on all of the proposed tax cuts. The top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee saying that she will not support the reconciliation bill, and she will also fight the clean continuing resolution, which would avoid a government shutdown.
Homeland Security officials are accusing the Biden administration of misleading the public on border numbers. Brooke Taylor has more from Dallas.
They basically accuse the Biden administration of what they're calling, quote, cooking the books and lying basically to the American public about how many illegal migrants they actually arrested. Acting ICE director here, Todd Lyons, he said, quote, ICE found tens of thousands of cases that were recorded as arrests when in fact the illegal aliens were simply processed and then released into American communities. The Biden administration reported more than 100,000 arrests in fiscal year 2024. But the senior leaders say the numbers are deceiving. That is because the majority of these arrests are what's called pass-through arrests, meaning they pass through ICE, then were just released into American communities pending those immigration hearings.
A high school girl and cross-country athlete is suing her school district and others after she came in second place in a meet, losing to a male who wants to pretend to be a girl.
The unnamed athlete's mother, Holly Magelingo, filed the lawsuit on behalf of her daughter, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's against the Colonial School District and the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association. The College Fix reports she's also suing the U.S. Department of Education. The claim is that the Quakertown Community High School students' constitutional rights were violated by her having to compete against the boy. Diane Gramley is the president of the American Family Association of Pennsylvania.
You know, the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Agency has made the right move at this point, but we'll see. Since her complaint is from an incident last fall, I'm not sure how it will play out in the court, since that at that point the PIAA policy was different than what it is now. So, she has every right.
She referenced a bill in the Pennsylvania Senate, SB 9, that would protect women's sports. Gramley said she thinks this is highly unlikely to pass the House because it has a slim Democratic margin.
And even if it were to pass both the House and the Senate here in Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro, I would almost guarantee you, would veto it.
She said she hopes people are recognizing the difference in the Democrats' stand on this issue versus the vast majority of Republican politicians and Republican voters who oppose men and women's sports.
I hope this cross-country runner over in Quakertown is successful in the suit, and we'll see how it plays out.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty P.
When you see trash in the media, submit it to 1millionmoms.com. Over the years, 1 million moms and our partners have improved advertising choices of programmers and content seen on TV. Just like you, 1 million moms want to protect little eyes and ears from the trash that could hurt them. So when you see trash in the media, visit 1millionmoms.com. Scroll down and look for the Submit Trash button.
Take it away!
1millionmoms.com.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. And this is Thursday, March the 13th, 2025. Tim, Ed, and Wesley. Last names are not important.
They're not.
It's what we bring to the table.
Absolutely. And we bring a bunch
to the table. Hey, but Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us now.
Good morning, everybody.
Rocking the Paisley.
Yep.
Keeping the reputation intact.
Got to do it every so often.
So, Wesley, we got our Share-a-thon coming up here on American Family Radio in a few weeks, and we need some help from our listeners, right?
We do. I wanted to do this on my own, but I appreciate you setting it up for me.
Well,
now
I can take it all back.
Yeah. In all seriousness, if the Lord has used AFR in your life, or if we've done something that has impacted you, whether it's given you an opportunity to be involved, whether it be 8 Days of Hope or the Bible League, or maybe it was Truth for Youth Bible Week, or maybe it's just the Bible verses that we share throughout the day that we read from our own staff on radio. If any part of AFR has impacted you, we would love for you to call in and share your story, and keep it to about 1 minute, 2 max, at 877-876-8893. That's 877-876-8893. If you would call in and leave a listener testimony of about 1 minute, 2 minutes max, we would love to be able to share how we have impacted you to our listeners as a word of encouragement to them, and a reason for them to continue to give during our share-a-thon. And that would help us out tremendously. That's one way you can partner with us and helping us continue to, in that particular week, to fundraise so we can continue to do the work that we're doing here.
Yeah, so what you do is you call in this number that Wesley gave.
877-876-8893.
And what we'll do is we'll use that testimony during our Share-a-thon on air.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be on air, but it'll maybe slightly edited. So it will, most of the time it'll be like, hey, this is Jane from Missouri, and I'm calling in to say AFR has blessed me in this way. Or I heard this on AFR and it changed my life, or whatever the case may be. I gave my life to the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Saved a marriage.
This is Bill in Kentucky, and I want to know I listen to American Family Radio. So we air those kinds of testimonies during our Share-a-thon to edify and encourage our audience, and that's what we're trying to recruit now so we can have them ready to go when our Share-a-thon rolls around in a few weeks.
Now, we use as many as we can.
Yes, we do.
And that's why we do ask that folks keep it as concise as possible.
Right, and don't make it a dud.
Right.
I mean,
I heard one this morning on the way into work, listening to Jenna Ellis's show.
Yeah.
And they played a listener testimony. It is very encouraging to us here on staff.
Right.
This lady was talking about how she first started listening to AFR. And it was great. So
do that. Call in 877-876-8893 to leave your listener testimony that we can use during Share-a-thon.
There you go. Thank you, Wesley. All right, Steve, what's your first story?
Well, we have our first transgender member of Congress.
I've been waiting.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's been just wondering how that's going to work out.
The first one, huh?
His name is Sarah McBride, and he hails from Delaware. And they got a little bit into it at a committee hearing this week.
Who got into it?
Well, the
like in a slap down?
No, it's a verbal, a verbal fight.
A verbal fight.
No one slapped a tariff.
No.
That was properly used. Good job.
So this is during a Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Europe hearing, and Mr. McBride is part of that committee. Keith Self, Republican of Texas, is also the chairman of the committee, and you will hear William Keating, who is a Democrat from Massachusetts, who is the ranking member. And there's a whole thing in the House now about, well, first it was what bathroom does Mr. McBride use? And then secondly, what do we call him? And this is how this transpired this week, cut 10.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
sorry.
could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you
standard-
repeat what you just said when
I-
you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
Well, there you have it.
All right.
I'm shocked that it was a congressman from Massachusetts putting up a fuss.
Hold up, though, just for the listeners, explain the transgender person in that speech.
I will.
Okay, please
Be
do.
glad to, because I enjoy talking transgenderism. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I want clarification.
All things transgender.
We've seen the video, so it makes a little more sense.
I know. So, you got this man who wears the dress.
Right. Okay, so far so
and
good.
fixes up his hair, puts makeup on, and says he's a woman.
Good.
Right.
Okay.
And
in this day and age,
his name is.
Pardon me.
And his name is.
He goes by the name Sarah McBride.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah McBride. So Sarah, who is a man, dresses like a woman, says he's a woman.
Okay.
The fight there, the verbal sparring was between a Democrat who was saying, "Have you no decency?" talking to the Republican chairman who introduced Sarah as Mr.
Correct.
Well, that set off this fella, you know. Where's he from, Massachusetts?
Yeah, he's from Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's so they got flaming liberals in Massachusetts, a lot of them, and they're flaming.
Yeah.
And he's offended that that the gentleman from Texas would refer to a dude as Mr.
Right.
So because the dude wants to be called a woman.
Yes.
So that's what all that was about right there. I don't know what the end result. Well, the end result was they just stopped the meeting.
They
right?
stopped the meeting. Afterwards, Chairman Keith Self said, I mean, he is allowed to live his life. In fact, I spent 25 years on active duty defending his right to live his life as he chooses, but I don't have to participate in his fantasy.
Right.
And she didn't either.
Well,
he.
There you go, Wesley.
Yes.
You slipped into it. He, McBride, the dude that dresses like a woman, referred back to the chairman as Madam Chairman.
Yeah, a little dig in there.
Yes. So anyway, that's what that was all about.
And he didn't get in trouble for calling him.
There
Madam.
you go. See how it
I
works
called it.
here? They're even getting you to slip into that language. All right, next story.
Secretary of Health and Human Services Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, which is a he and claims to be a he,
What's pronouns?
Yeah, he, him.
Okay.
And your Kennedy-ness has delivered a stark ultimatum to food companies. He's telling food companies like PepsiCo and General Mills and Tyson and Smuckers and Kraft's, you have to use natural colors. You cannot use food additives, synthetic color food additives in your food, and it has to be out by the time I get out of office. You have 4 years to get this done, or else we'll do it for you.
So
Get the food color. Get the one that's food color and hurt you.
Some say that it is red dye number 5. I think was one of the.
And one of the things he does is he compares the ingredients of the same foods produced by the same companies here in the U.S. and Europe. And his argument, RFK Jr.'s argument, is that Europe won't allow these artificial colorings and other preservatives in their foods because they believe that it harms the human body. And in America, these companies have been getting away with that. He's going to change it.
Are artificial colorings for food? They're unnecessary, aren't they?
They don't use them in Europe. Is what I'm.
Are they only for the psychological effect on Americans?
That's the way I
In other words, we don't want to buy
You don't want to buy gray Fruit Loops.
Okay, so they color them.
They color them. So but then the flavor has to match the color. So you have not only artificial coloring but artificial flavoring.
I don't know. You think? I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. What do you think about it?
Here's what I do know is that
Okay.
once we enter into the conversation of does food coloring cause problems, we're all three going to lose that one.
What do you mean?
It's a very sensitive. It's like a COVID. It's like a vaccine shot type conversation.
Oh, okay.
It's a conversation that's very hypersensitive for people. And
Well, see, I'm just ignorant of it.
yes, you
pretty
are.
much,
Just
and I
stay
need to
ignorant.
shut-
Move on.
I just need to shut.
Stay
I just need to
move
shut
on.
my mouth.
You're saying there are listeners
Yeah, they
who
are.
think you're of the devil if you don't.
Well, close to the devil.
Well, I'm saying they get that passionate
They
about
get very
About
passionate.
food coloring and
food coloring,
artificial food coloring.
Here's
additives
what.
and all
Here,
that.
I'm just going to say what my opinion is because you know what? I stand up for what I believe.
You do.
I don't
you'll
care
fall
what,
for everything.
what anyone else says except for my wife, who usually does not listen to me on the show because she hears me enough. Okay. Here's what I believe. Okay. First of all, preservatives.
You have a Bible verse for this?
I don't.
Okay.
Preservatives have been a huge boon. In other words, very beneficial to humanity in keeping foods from spoiling. Okay. However, that does not mean that you can't have substitutes that are not dangerous. And I look forward to RFK Jr. having some scientific studies done that will prove one way or the other whether preservatives, artificial colorings, dyes, etc., are necessary or or you can you substitute for them? Because if they are dangerous, we need to know that.
That's right.
Well, but the bottom line is RFK Jr.
Going to get to the bottom of it, what it sounds like.
has said to the food manufacturers, take all your artificial food coloring out of your products by the end of my term being 4 years, or you may be punished financially or something like
they're
that.
going to mandate that they
So
do
I don't know how that's going to work exactly, but I think he's making a point that he believes that artificial coloring of foods is unhealthy.
Well, it's interesting. If you talk to people that like travel to Europe, for example, there's a lot of people who have allergies to certain things here, like gluten. They can't eat bread, but they go over to Europe. They can eat all the bread they want.
Yes,
That's right.
no effects.
No effects.
These are the types
I
of
got
stuff
you.
that comes up.
Yeah, and the food colorings. Europe uses natural food colorings, and they can eat the cereals without getting hives or whatever they get over here. So
I do.
There's a lot of health concerns that Robert F. Kennedy has about our food systems and our food supplies.
And in another layer to this conversation, and again, this is just average man on the street conversation,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
Another thought is that that doesn't happen to everybody. So I could eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch and be fine, but others could eat it and they have a different reaction. So ultimately, they're wanting to change all the ingredients for that one person that has a reaction to it, which
Yeah.
you see.
Yeah, I see the need for us to move on to the next topic because we're.
I would like to just add one thing, and then I'm good.
I like where you pun there.
It's an
you want to
additive.
add one thing
This
to
is
our
an
food
additive.
coloring.
And I also just seemed insensitive for the person that reacts to Cinnamon Toast Crunch because I like it and I don't.
So this is an artificial additive to our conversation.
Okay.
Yes.
I want someone, or maybe it's RFK Jr.,
right,
to figure out why I can't eat Fruit Loops and Frosted Flakes without getting fat. So maybe it's an additive.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's
Come on, let's RFK Jr. make
I
it.
want to answer that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all the sugar. I don't know.
Well, it's the 4 bowls instead of 1.
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
Well,
it would on a serious note. Let's make a note. It would be interesting to have someone who's an expert on the conservative side to come on and talk about this. What RFK is
all right,
doing.
you find us that expert, and we'll have them on.
Or
Fair
Steve,
enough.
Or
Well,
Steve.
no. I'm
Steve's
no
an
expert.
No,
I'm
no,
not
I
the
mean,
expert.
you interview people all
Yeah,
the
I
time.
do.
If you can find someone.
You got a food coloring expert, you know?
I could find one. I could look for one.
Next story.
All right. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when Donald Trump had the governors meeting at the White House, and he and the governor of Maine got into a spat?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
it's rare for Trump.
I know, isn't it?
To
So
get
he
into
was
a spat
standing.
with somebody.
He was standing up at the podium at this meeting, and he said, "We have one of the things we've done in this administration is we've declared that there are two genders, male and female. They don't switch. They don't do anything. They can't change, and we're not going to allow boys into girls' sports or girls into boys' sports, for that matter." And he said Maine is kind of bucking against the trend here, and he called out the Maine governor. Is she here? Yeah. And so he got the Maine governor up, and they said, "Well, we'll meet you all in court." Well, the Trump administration has ordered the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which I'm not sure why they are the funder, to pause federal funds to the University of Maine system over the state's refusal to protect women's sports.
I got 3 words for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of them's going to be a combo word. Here are the 3 words I got for you. Trump, don't play.
It's true.
Now, that's incorrect English, and I'm well aware of that. It's kind of like artificial coloring in food.
Yes.
Shouldn't be allowed. But in this case, I think it helps explain the position that President Trump has staked out in his administration, which I think those 3 words apply. Don't you, Ed?
Yeah. Listen, for the last 6 weeks, it has been like Christmas every day. And
for conservatives.
Yes,
for liberals, it's been like a living hell.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
With food coloring.
With food coloring. Listen, he just
artificial food coloring.
When we joke about the use of the phrase "slap a tariff,"
yeah,
he's doing a whole lot of slapping, and it's not just tariffs.
Right. He told this woman, who's the governor of Maine.
Yep.
I wish we had that. Brent, if you can find that, that'd be great. To put President Trump's exchange with Maine governor, because what he said to her.
Her name's Janet Mills.
Janet Mills. You got it? Okay. Oh, man. Brent, that's outstanding work there. Brent Creeley, our producer. I just asked him to get it, and within 10 seconds he had it. Here with no help from Google, I'm sure.
Listen, Brent can sometimes pull off
he can be a crack
producer sometimes.
Not a crack head, but
right.
A crack producer.
Crack producer.
Okay, so what you're about to hear is what I would call Trump don't play. And this is his exchange with the governors of Maine. Keep in mind, this is at a formal dinner in the White House with all the governors, I guess most all the governors, vast majority of them, Democrat or Republican. They're guests at the White House, and President Trump starts talking about this topic, and here's what happens.
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Okay, that didn't get all the main part of that. I'm not blaming you, Brent.
So Brent missed the most important part.
The part that was leading up to what just happened was Trump saying, "I have signed an executive order for you, governors, to adhere to that says men cannot play in female sports, and if you do, we're going to cut off your funding from I don't know what Title IX or whatever. I don't know whatever.
It's Title IX.
Okay, Title IX government funding, and she gets then he says, "Hey, Governor of Maine, are you here?"
Yeah,
I hear you don't care what about girls playing. Basically, is what he's saying. I'm just saying that. Listen, I give kudos to President Trump for telling it like it is right there. And now he didn't do so. I don't think he can be sarcastic. And I know sarcasm because I can use
You've
it too.
experienced it before.
It can be hurtful.
Yeah.
But anyway, you got it rest of it? Okay. All right, Brent Creeley, our producer, who I'm going to applaud again.
You may want to wait till we find out what he actually
dug
up.
I am putting him on the spot. So hopefully we're going to get the fuller context here. Go ahead.
An executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue because you'll never win another race. The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state. Good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, listen, there is the CenterSquare.com, which is in Maine, says that Maine's Democratic Governor Janet Mills is facing a recall effort from critics of her transgender policies, but the citizen-led campaign is unlikely to result in her being removed from office. So there is a dust-up, even in Maine.
They are going to lose out on millions and millions and millions of dollars that would have otherwise gone to their state. That is happening.
Over wanting a man to play in women's sports.
Yes. That's what these people are committed to, is this radical left-wing ideology, especially when it comes to transgendered issues. 80% of the public doesn't want boys playing girls' sports, and it crosses all political lines, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. 80% of the American public go, no, that is a bridge too far. We're not supporting that.
And Democrats cannot complain about what Trump is doing with regards to Title IX funds because the Biden administration did the opposite.
Yes.
They said, you're going to allow boys to play in women's sports or we'll cut off your funds. So they are getting the Biden treatment only from Trump.
Yeah, we got a minute to go or so, Steve.
Yeah, so have you ever heard of the replacement rate theory? A society, a culture has to have 2.1 children per couple in order to just maintain this.
And the 0.1 covers infant mortality.
Right. Well, they're not doing they have just dipped below that in India, the most populous country in the world. But India's a little concerned about this. So they have said that they are going to give a cow to any woman who has
holy cow.
Holy cow.
In their religion.
So
yes.
it's if it's a girl, the woman gets 50,000 rupees, which is about $575. If it's a boy, the woman gets a cow if she has a third child.
Okay. And
what is going to happen to the expression is she had a cow? What is going to happen to that now? You mean they're going to give the girl a cow or a boy a cow?
I don't know what the gender of the cow is, but the woman, if she has a boy, gets a cow.
Well, I can tell you, a cow is a female.
Oh, I guess it would be, huh? It would be a bull.
Shame on y'all that a city boy from Boston had to come up with that one.
That's right, yeah. You didn't leave us enough time for jokes here. We have plenty of them. We have 4 in a matter of 10 seconds. So
I just know the cow jumped over the moon. That's what I know. Right? Did it not?
Yeah.
You said he. He said
the cow jumped over the moon?
Cow jumped over the moon.
A bull jumps over the moon is a he.
Listen, I don't care.
Cow jumps over the moon, it's a she.
The cow can identify however it wants. As long as it gives milk, I don't care.
All right. For your frosted flakes or
just as long as it isn't artificially colored.
Rapid deterioration of this conversation.
Boy, what sell fast.
It'll get better tomorrow on Trivia Friday.